I moved into apartment 302 on a Thursday afternoon. The walls smelled faintly of bleach, the air was stale, and the landlord handed me the keys with an odd warning. "Don't leave your windows open at night," he said. "The wind carries strange sounds here." I laughed it off. Rent was cheap, and I didn't care about superstition. The first few nights were quiet, until I started hearing it. Faint scratching inside the walls. It sounded like nails dragging slowly, deliberately from one end of the living room to the other. I assumed it was rats, but when I knocked, the scratching stopped immediately. And then came from behind me. It moved fast. By the third night, the noises changed. I was lying in bed when I heard a low whisper through the wall, like a man's voice repeating the same phrase over and over. I pressed my ear against the drywall. It was saying my name. Daniel. Daniel. I froze. My phone was charging on the nightstand, and I grabbed it to check the time. 3:17 a.m. When I looked back at the wall, there were finger-shaped impressions pushing outward from the paint, stretching the surface like something was trying to crawl through. I packed a bag and left the apartment that night, slept in my car. The next morning, I returned with a flashlight and a maintenance guy named Carl. We pulled the panel off the wall in the living room to check for animals. Inside was a hollow cavity, big enough for someone to hide in, and a smell like rot and mold. Carl gagged and backed away. "Jesus, man, call the cops." Before we did, I noticed something. A small photograph taped to the inside of the cavity. It was of a woman, eyes wide, standing in what looked like my apartment. On the back, in faint handwriting, it said, "Don't let it in." That night I stayed at a hotel. I planned to move out in the morning, but curiosity got the better of me. Around midnight, I logged into the building's tenant portal to check who lived there before me. Apartment 302, vacant since 1998. Previous tenant, Elaine Porter, deceased. The death record said, "Found within wall cavity." No forced entry, no suspects. My phone buzzed, unknown number. I answered, static, then a faint whisper. "Daniel, open the window." I hung up immediately and checked the time. 3:17 a.m. again, same as before. That's when I heard the scratching, not from the wall this time, but from inside the hotel vent above me. I left that night and never went back. 3 weeks later, I got an email from the landlord. Subject, "Regarding your deposit." The message had one attachment, a photograph. It was me sleeping in my hotel bed. Behind me, in the corner of the room, something pale and thin was crouched against the wall. I was driving home from my night shift when I first saw her. It was a little past 2 a.m., the highway empty except for my headlights cutting through the fog. I was exhausted. My eyes burned from staring at the road too long, and the radio was dead silent except for faint static. Then, through the mist ahead, I caught a glimpse of movement. A figure standing on the shoulder of the road, her white dress almost glowing under the beam of my lights. At first, I thought she was hurt. I slowed down, rolled down my window, and called out, "Hey, you okay?" No answer. She just stood there facing away from me. Her hair was long, pitch black, and plastered against her face and neck as if she'd come from water. Something about it felt wrong. I almost drove off, but guilt got the better of me. What if she really needed help? I parked on the side, turned on my hazards, and got out. The air was freezing cold even though it was midsummer. When I got closer, I noticed she was barefoot, her feet caked with mud. "Ma'am, do you need a ride?" I asked. She slowly turned her head, not all the way, just enough for me to see one side of her face. Her lips were pale, her eyes dull, and she whispered something I couldn't make out. "What?" I said. She took a step forward, then another. The way she moved, it wasn't right. Too stiff, too quiet. I backed toward my car, and that's when I realized she wasn't standing on the road anymore. She was standing in the lane, in front of my car, blocking my path. I jumped in, locked the doors, and turned the ignition. The engine sputtered, coughed, and died. The headlights flickered. She was still there. The static on the radio came alive, whispering, crackling, forming words. "Take her home." "No," I muttered. "Hell no." I tried my phone, but there was no signal. Then, a knock on the driver's window, 3 slow taps. I turned. The window was fogged up from the inside, and written across the glass in small, wet letters were the words, "I never made it home." I couldn't breathe. My heart pounded so hard it hurt. And then, she was gone. No footsteps, no sound, just gone. The car started on the first try after that. I hit the gas and didn't look back until I reached the next gas station about 20 miles away. Inside, the attendant gave me a strange look. "You okay?" he asked. I must have looked pale. I told him what happened, the girl, the dress, the message on the window. He froze. "White dress, barefoot." "Yeah," I said. He sighed and pointed to a corkboard behind the counter. Tacked to it was an old sun-faded newspaper clipping. "Local teen killed in hit and run, June 1997. Her name was Rebecca Lowe. The photo showed her smiling, wearing the same white dress I'd just seen. According to the article, she'd been walking home along Route 19 when she was struck and left for dead. Her body was found in a ditch, less than a mile from where I'd seen her. I didn't sleep that night. The next day I went back to the spot. The air felt heavy, the same freezing chill from before. And there at the edge of the road, someone had left a small white cross with her name carved into it. What made me leave wasn't the cross, though. It was the photo beneath it. A fresh printout, like it had been taken last night. It showed my car parked on the road, driver's side door open, and standing right next to me was Rebecca Lowe, smiling. It started with the old radio. I found it at a yard sale 2 weeks ago, a dusty 1970s tabletop model with a cracked dial and a faint smell of burnt plastic. The man selling it said it didn't work anymore, but I've always loved restoring things. I took it home, cleaned it up, and plugged it in. The moment I turned the knob, a burst of static filled the room, sharp and loud enough to make me flinch. But underneath the static, I heard something else. A voice, faint, broken up, like it was buried beneath the noise. "Help, please. Can you hear me?" I laughed it off at first, assuming it was a leftover signal from some random frequency. But as I tuned the dial, the voice followed, always on the same pitch, whispering through the white noise. "Help me." It sent a shiver through me. I tried turning the volume down, but the knob snapped off in my hand. The voice grew louder. "I'm here. I see you." I yanked the plug from the wall, and the sound cut instantly. Silence. For the rest of the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I'd heard something alive in there. The next morning, curiosity won. I plugged the radio back in. Nothing. Just dead air. But at exactly 3:07 a.m. that night, I woke to the sound of static coming from the living room. The radio was on again. "Thank you for listening." I froze. That wasn't a plea this time. It was calm, almost polite. Then I realized the voice wasn't random. It was saying my name. Ethan. I grabbed my phone to record it. When I played it back the next morning, the audio file was corrupted, just faint hissing and a deep, low hum that vibrated through my headphones. Over the next few nights, it got worse. The voice started answering me. When I whispered, "Who are you?" the radio replied, "You know me." When I said, "What do you want?" it said, "Company." I stopped sleeping. Every night at 3:07, the voice returned, always whispering, sometimes humming what sounded like an old lullaby. On the 7th night, I made a mistake. I asked, "Where are you?" It laughed. Not a human laugh, more like the sound of air being sucked through teeth. "Behind you." The temperature dropped so fast that I could see my breath. I turned slowly, every instinct screaming not to. Nothing was there. But the static was louder now, pulsing, rhythmic, almost like breathing. Then, from across the room, my reflection in the window moved. It smiled. I didn't. I unplugged the radio and smashed it with a hammer until it was nothing but a pile of broken parts. The voice screamed through the speaker, even after it shattered. When it finally stopped, I sat in the silence for hours, shaking. The next morning, I threw the remains in the trash and drove them to the dump. That night, I finally slept, for the first time in a week. But when I woke up the next morning, my phone was buzzing. I had a new voicemail. No number, just static. Then a whisper. "Thank you for listening." I deleted it. But every day since, at exactly 3:07 a.m., my phone turns on by itself. Screen glowing, speaker crackling softly. I tried recording it again last night. When I played it back, I heard my own voice, tired, trembling, whispering, "Help me. Can you hear me?" And somewhere underneath it, something laughing.